Well, good morning, everyone. It's a privilege and pleasure to see you all here this morning in community with Children's Health Council. My name is Ramsey Castro. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer here at CHC. And I just want to start by thanking you for making it out this morning. If you haven't done so already, we have some breakfast treats and refreshments at the back of the room, so please help yourself. Before we begin, I'd like to extend a special thank you to Dr. Temple Grandin, who is here, her and her team, who joined us this morning. I also want to acknowledge two of our CHC staff members who will be doing a Q&A later on this morning after Dr. Grandin speaks. One person is Gina Baldi. She is one of our autism experts and a parent trainer for our early support program for autism. And Cindy Lopez, our Director of Community Engagement here at CHC. For those of you who may not be familiar with CHC, we are dedicated to supporting children, teens, young adults, and families who might be impacted by ADHD, autism, anxiety, depression, and learning differences. We have this location, this campus. We also have a campus in East Palo Alto, and we have campuses in San Jose to ensure that we're meeting the needs of families here in the Bay Area. CHC offers several programs specifically designed to support autistic individuals and their families. Our early support program, ESPA, is a collaboration with Stanford Children's Health and offers free and bilingual parent training support and care coordination support, giving families the help and support that they need to navigate the complicated healthcare system when it comes to individuals diagnosed with autism. Our clinical services division here at CHC also provides gold standard evaluations for young children to help identify and diagnose autism. We also provide therapy services for young people who are autistic and who are really trying to navigate this neurotypical system and world that they live in, and oftentimes results in secondary anxiety and depression and other struggles. We also provide a robust and free comprehensive online resource library that is filled with podcasts and articles and research and presentations tailored to individuals who are diagnosed with autism and their loved ones. Without further ado, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce Dr. Temple Grandin. Dr. Grandin is an academic inventor and ethologist. She is a renowned autism advocate and leader in promoting humane livestock treatment. She's authored more than 60 scientific papers on animal behavior and serves as faculty member of the Department of Animal Sciences at Colorado State University. In 2010, Time 100, an annual list of the 100 most influential people in the world, recognized her in the heroes category. Dr. Grandin, we are truly grateful to have you here with us today. Please join us in welcoming Dr. Grandin. Pleasure to meet you.
But there's a little more background about myself. I had no speech until age 4. I was very lucky to get an extremely good early intervention. I can't emphasize how important that is. So I travel around the country. I'm finding 3-year-olds on 2-year wait lists in many different places. This is not acceptable, period. So what do you do when you go in the low-income areas? There are no services. They have their church. That's all they got. No money. I came up with this idea of library play. We're going to do therapy, or we won't call it, for legal reasons. Let's get the retired teachers out there. We've got to work on these kids. Nothing is the worst thing you can do. Let them zone out on the phone all day. That's what you don't do. Now, the other big problem area is employment. I spent 25 years in heavy construction, out on big construction projects. We were building cargo plants. And I developed a piece of equipment called the center track restrainer system. If you want to see how that works, you can look up Beef Plant Video Tour with Temple Grandin when I show that today. The person who built that for me was autistic, owned a machine shop. This is what makes me go absolutely crazy, is I go back and forth between the worlds. We're not getting into the workplace. And we don't develop our math kids, right? We're not developing our kids that ought to be going into very high-end skilled trades. I met a very nice lady last night. She's not an engineer. But you'd like the air conditioning to stay on in Stanford's buildings? Would you like the water systems to work? She can just listen to a pump and tell you it's going to break. That's a different kind of thinking than the mathematical. You need both. Got to think one lady who's a different kind of thinker, so that those buildings have electricity and they have water and things like that. Now, when you have autistic people, you tend to get extreme different kinds of thinking. I'm a visual thinker. Okay, and then you got a lot of mathematicians. They're all autistic. They're real good ones, all of them. But that's a different kind of thinker than the visual thinker. And I'm not going to show all these slides. You're welcome to the whole slide deck. But I do a lot of talks to businesses. We need these skills. So I go to Goldman Sachs or some company like that, some big fancy company, and they comp me a $600 a night room and in a very fancy hotel, and I look out the window and I go, get a high tide here? I'm going to flood the basement. You're not going to be able to live in this hotel. Nothing's going to work. And then I do a talk and I say, how many of you have ever seen the mechanical systems in the basement of this building? None of them have gone. They got no respect for it. They'll care about that stuff when it breaks. And the kind of visual thinking required for very high-end skilled trades. I'm not talking about laying carpet tile. I'm not talking about the drop ceiling. I'm talking about the real high-end stuff, like the lady at Stanford. She can walk in that boiler room and just say, yep, the such and such is going to break. We got a 2-month delivery time on that part. We better order one right now. That's a different kind of thinking. We need these skills. The first step is you got to realize different thinking exists. They bring different approaches to problem solving. We need to have both. Let's go back to the beef processing plant or the food processing plant that I work on. My kind of thinker, no engineering degrees, invents all the mechanical equipment, totally mechanical devices. All right, we don't understand refrigeration. We need a degree of engineering to do refrigeration. That requires a lot more mathematics. You want a food processing plant? You need both. It's that simple. And the thing about my kind of mind, I notice details. This sign's in our Denver airport. I was laughing my head off when I look at the sign. Thousands of people walk by this sign. You know, you don't really want to leave your stuff behind in security. You really don't want to. Why would I be laughing my head off at this sign? Check that boarding pass out. All right. You check that boarding pass out. Area 51 and gate A51 with a flying saucer on the boarding pass? Yeah. Most people don't notice that. That's noticing little visual detail. Now, my work with livestock, one of the first things I did was to look at what cattle were singing. And cattle going through a chute, see that reflection there? Well, 2 hours later, that may be gone. So why at 10 o'clock in the morning are they going through this system really nicely to get their vaccinations? 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're balking and turning back. It's because of that reflection. A lot of people weren't seeing that. That was some of the very first work I did in cattle behavior. And I didn't know at the time that I was doing this work. The other people didn't think the way I did. And you have a lot of people that are mixtures, but you get a real smart autistic person that may be a visual thinker like me. And the worst thing that was ever done, taking shop classes out of schools. Worst thing that was ever done. And then if they do put the shop classes back in, they're getting it too late at the community college. Or they say, well, special ed kids can't take shop because of insurance liability. That's a bunch of BS. Because in my generation, and I'm being absolutely serious, special ed owned the shops. Owned the shops. I worked with a shop that was all full of dyslexics. 2 other shops, 20 patents each. Selling their stuff around. Well, not junky patents, good patents. Stuff is still being used, even though the patents are expired. Yeah, this is what makes me go crazy now, so I go back and forth between the worlds. We're going to go through the different kinds of thinking, and then we're going to talk about a few things. I'm not showing all these slides. There's 3 different kinds of thinking, and a lot of so-called normal people are mixtures. But in autism, you may get an extreme visualizer or an extreme mathematician. They're opposite kinds of thinking. Or you get extreme verbal thinker. They know all the facts about some historical thing or sports team or some other thing that interests them. I'm what's called an object visualizer. Now, right there, you've got my book, Visual Thinking. I'm a shameless book promoter right here. Yes, Amazon shipping right now, Visual Thinking. And I provide the research that shows that the visual thinker and the mathematical thinker are different. There's research. You want evidence-based? This is full of evidence-based. I'm not going to go up through all of this stuff. Also, a brand new article came out in Nature just a few months ago. Language is not required for thought. Isn't that cool? Thought that was really, really cool. So object visualizers, this is what we're good at. High-end skilled trades, mechanical equipment. Even Stanford has to have this one lady. They better be bowing down and kissing her. And it gets really, really, really hot. And the air conditioning stops working. She makes sure it keeps going. Graphic design, AI is going to eat up a lot of those jobs. There's still a place for high-end artwork, but I'm going to really push the skilled trades. And I'm not talking about this carpet tiles here. That's just work. I'm talking about the real high-end stuff here. Factory maintenance. But you know what? We can't do algebra. And I'm very concerned, and the people I work with can't do algebra. There's some of these requirements are screening us out. You see how my memory's like little phone pictures. I can't remember it. I can't remember it. But you need us. You need us, and you need us really bad. I travel all around the country. Elevators are not being fixed. All over the country. Elevator certificates expired. You still have them. The other states don't. Yeah, busted elevators. Yeah, all over the place. And I love NASA stuff. So here's the 1960s, totally refurbished mission control room, Houston Space Center. This summer, broken elevator, 5 flights stairs. This is so cool. This is what I think is cool. Really accurate down the big ashtrays full of butts. I thought that was really great. Now, this is the guy I want to have my factory maintenance. He's taking a welding class for autistic adults. He made flowers out of parts. The guy that can just, or girl, I don't care what it is, that can just look at a box of parts and say, we're going to make flowers out of it. That's the kind of visual thinker that's going to keep my factory running. Okay, here is the Stanford math genius, the spatial thinker. Patterns. Music and math go together. Art and mechanics go together. Now, when I was in grade school, I didn't care about acting in a play, but I loved making sets and costumes. That's something that can turn into a career. The other thing I learned how to do, and I'm not going to be able to show these slides, is I sold my work. I showed off portfolios of drawings, portfolios of pictures. I sold my work, not myself. I designed the front end of every Cargill beef plant in North America. I developed a piece of equipment called the center track restrainer. Every big plant has one. Yeah, that's pretty good for somebody who can't do algebra, doesn't have an engineering degree. But this is what I call the clever engineering department. It's all the visual, mechanical things. And I'm seeing math kids not being developed. Math kids getting into all kinds of trouble in elementary school because they're bored stiff doing baby math. Okay, then they get in big trouble because they're so bored, hack into the school's computer system, do some stuff worse than that. China develops their math kids. I get science and nature. So there's an article in there in quantum computing. I don't understand the article, but you know what? I can read the author list. And they're from China. DeepSeek just turned our tech industry upside down. Total math geek. 7th grade, let's just do calculus for play. And then he sits in front of his grandmother's lace doilies and basically gives the finger to the whole tech world. Yeah, think differently. You know, one of the things he did to cut down on the data center use, he cataloged it, same way a library catalogs books. So you're interested in sports, it doesn't search the whole data center. We made ChatGPT show her work. He just rewarded it for the right answer. It does alien weird math to find the answer. Those are simple concepts. And then they did this other thing called filtration. That was ripping off some stuff. Word mind. And there's some autistics that are total word mind. And they're very good at jobs like specialized retail, where you're very good at selling new cars because they know every feature of every new car. All right, let's talk about getting into the job world. This is where we're falling down. Grandparents come up to me all the time. They discover they're autistic. That helped with their relationships. They all had decent jobs. They had paper routes when they were 11. I know those are gone. But now we need paper route substitutes. They've got to start learning how to do a job outside the family on a schedule. Church volunteer jobs, walking the neighbor's dogs. Somebody else's dog, they've got to walk. And they need to be getting jobs as soon as they're legal. So we get a slow transition from school to work. I'm seeing parents baby their kids so much. They're 16 years old, fully verbal. They've never gone in a store and bought anything themselves. That's crazy. I talked to one mom and I said, the next time you go to the gas station, a really nice neighborhood gas station, not some dump, give your kid a $5 bill and have them go in the store and buy something. And you know what the mom said? I don't know if I have the guts to do that. That's exactly what a mom said. No, we've got to do this. All right, got an adults addicted to video games. I'll tell you how to get them off. Car mechanics. It has been successful. The visual thinkers like me get addicted to video games. I don't touch the stuff. I know how addictive it is. I don't have any of that crap on my phone. Right now at the age of 77 years old, I want to see the people that think differently get into good jobs. I thought it was really funny that this one lady, no engineering degree, start out just as a laborer. She makes sure the mechanicals at the university work. Yeah, they'll miss her when the stuff breaks. That's for sure. And here's language is not required for thought. Yeah, I really like that. All right, here's some of the research that shows that there is the visual spatial thinker and the object visualizer are really different. And in autism, you tend to get the extremes. The extreme mathematician, they're all autistic, the real extreme ones. The extreme visualizer can fix anything. When I was out working in the plants all the time, there'd be the weird maintenance guy in the shop. He could fix anything, build anything. They're all retired out now. I go in the plant now. Can you make me a hydraulic ramp thingy? This is for a plant right here in California. I took one look at their shop. They didn't have the tools for it. They're trying to farm things out to the shops that are left. They're overwhelmed. That guy's not getting replaced. They're playing video games in the industry, and they ought to be building a hydraulic adjustable ramp for my center track restrainer. Where 20 years ago, I could just walk into the plant, shop, scribble on a piece of paper, and they'd make it for me. They can't do that anymore. Yeah, that's a big problem, a real big problem. And I like visual analogies. The visual memories are stored back here. You need the frontal cortex to find them. And there's an old Dewey Decimal catalog system right there. Now they use the system that Amazon and Barnes & Noble uses. That's the catalog. The books are now in the data center. And a lot of people are mixtures. I think we're going to leave it at that, because we just have a short time to talk. Let's talk about some accommodations. My mother had high expectations, but what accommodations are needed? Bill Gates is on the spectrum. There's a new book out called Source Code. And Mrs. Gates did a lot of the same things with Bill that was done with me. And he said, just the right amount of pressure with support. Same thing. And when Bill and I were 7 and 8 years old, we had to be host and hostesses at parents' parties. He served coffee at bridge parties. I served snacks at cocktail parties. But that taught us how to talk to adults. Really important. Selling candy for charity. And in the HBO movie, there's a scene where I go up to the farmer ranchman editor and I get his card and I start writing for him. Yeah, selling candy for charity. That gave me the guts to go up and talk to him. All right, let's talk about some accommodations we need at work. Let's avoid the chaotic, vapid multitasking jobs. I'm going to give you examples of jobs that failed. A chaotic Gap store at Christmas time. Super busy hospital receptionist, phones ringing, people constantly coming up to the desk. But then over at my dentist's office, the receptionist would have been fine. Much lower workload. See, I'm seeing specific examples. These chaotic takeout windows. And then one McDonald's, the manager made a nice accommodation. When the store got busy, they took the autistic lady off the register and put her to cleaning tables. Okay, so that kind of job probably want to avoid. Also, I can't remember long strings of verbal information. This is where you need to teach them how to make pilots checklists. Because bosses get mad and they go, well, I already showed you how to clean the ice cream machine 5 times. Are you stupid? This is where you say, let me write down the steps for cleaning the ice cream machine. Pilot's checklist, save a lot of jobs. Yeah, really, really important. That would tons of jobs be saved. In the schools, they need to get bullying under control. And another thing is lights that flicker. All right, I'll tell you how to pull this thing out, preferably an Apple phone, and photograph that room in slow motion video. You'll find the lights that flicker. All right, what do I do if we're stuck in a room like this with no windows? Well, actually, it does have windows. If you have windows, you can turn the lights off. With no windows, we buy an LED that doesn't flicker, put it in a lamp, and put it in the person's workstation, and wear a hat. Oh, you see, I'm just saying, very simple ways. Okay, I'm just all about done. Very simple ways to fix that. Lights that flicker, avoiding certain types of chaotic jobs, but preferably a slow transition from the world of school to the world of work. This is where we're falling down. The other thing is choices. You could work at this store or that store, give some choices. I was afraid to go to my aunt's ranch. That got my work in cattle started. The choice. All summer or come home in a week. Not go home wasn't a choice. Give some choices. But sitting in your room all the time isn't one of them. And where I was not allowed to become a recluse in my room. Absolutely was not allowed. But I had some choices. This is where we're really falling down. What's making me frustrated is that weird guy in the shop that could fix anything in that plant is now a recluse playing video games in his room. And you can forget about jobs designing video games. AI is just going to take that over. High-end skilled trades. I'm seeing a lady right now. We were just flapping. I totally understand how you can listen to that pump and you know it's going to break. And we've got to put an order in for a new one because it has a 2-month delivery time. Okay. I think I'm finished on time. We're going to do the interview now. Okay.
Wow. Thank you, Temple. And can you hear me? Okay. But you put mic up here that I didn't. So it's great to hear you speaking and for all of us in here. Before actually we jump into the conversation between Gina and Temple, I just want to know who's in the room. How many of you are parents of kids with autism? There we go. A lot. Okay. How about educators? A few. Okay. Anyone else? Adults, individuals with autism. Yes. Awesome. And how many of you in here think you are visual thinkers? You don't know? Interesting. Okay.
Well, let's look at jobs because the visual thinkers, the real high-end skilled trades, one of the places they end up. And then I've had degreed engineers. This really made me angry. I had a guy, a degreed engineer, pick me up from the airport, and he was going, "Those people just build equipment." I said, "They invent equipment." I've worked for every major meat company. And the big mistake they made 20 years ago was shutting down their in-house engineering departments. Like Montfort, for example, who no longer exists, used to build all their own equipment. The plant now, they can't build anything hardly themselves.
I'm wondering too, Temple, in light of, and Gina, in light of like just asking this room, like how many of you think you're visual thinkers? Not sure, right? So can you tell us a little bit about what parents or caregivers, educators might see?
All right, let's look at I asked, what is your kid good at? If they're super good at math, they're probably not a visual thinker. They're going to be the more pattern thinker. The visual thinkers are going to gravitate if the school is a theater program, sets and costume design, that kind of thing. There's all kinds of great jobs they can do in what they call technical theater, where you're in charge of all the lighting and all of that kind of stuff. Let's look at what interests them. The video game addicts are pretty much all visual thinkers. Then that's the reason why the auto mechanics has been successful. You gradually wean them off. They find motors are more interesting. You have to replace video games with something else. You can't just take it away.
Yeah. And Gina, as you think about that too, and the kids and the families that you
The
work
real
with,
little kids, 3-year-olds, you really can't tell. They're too young. I tend
Yeah. What are you seeing in those?
Yeah, as Dr. Temple just said, I can't Temple just said, I can't, with the young ones, you can't predict.
3-year-olds, you most of the time, you
Absolutely.
can't tell them 3-year-olds. My ability in art, which was always encouraged, it showed up more like in a first grade, second grade. That's when it really, really showed up. And my ability in art was encouraged. And I was encouraged to draw lots of different things, not the same horse head over and over again. Also, I grew up with tools. We've got kids growing up today who've never used a tool. I've got kids in my livestock class. They would have to do a scale drawing. They've never measured anything. Never used a ruler or tape measure to measure anything. I don't know what they teach in school. I don't. Now, when they take a shop class, they got to spend 2 weeks just teaching measurement.
Right. And so for early, it's really about early exposure.
Oh yeah, you've
And
got to
you do,
expose.
right.
You've got to expose to these things. And I've seen too many kids that's super good at Legos. Nobody thought to introduce tools. I'm saying that over and over again.
So I hear you talking a lot about hands-on
Especially for
experiences.
my kind of thing.
Yeah. Hands-on experiences for kids. And I heard you, and you mentioned that when you were just talking with us a few minutes ago. Hands-on experiences for kids. And what about things? So my background is education. And there are some educators sitting in the audience, and we talk a lot about neurodiversity and different minds and universal design for learning and project-based learning.
Yep.
Are those kinds of ideas?
Well, some of those ideas depends how you do them. People ask me, how would I assess education? Where is a student 10 years after high school? I was doing my first big design project because I wanted to prove I wasn't stupid. I can think of places I don't want them, addicted, in jail. I certainly don't want them there. But out, hopefully doing something above an entry-level job. That's where I want them. Even that project, it depends how you do the project-based learning. Education has a lot of theory. Yeah, I read some of it. I think it's BS. If you really want my opinion of it, I come out of 25 years of construction. There's an urgency. You have to get jobs.
Yes.
You've got to get jobs done with the best plant manager, with the worst plant manager. But lately, I've had F-word spewing horrible manager. I've had other managers that were good. There's sort of an urgency. You got to get jobs done. And if a kid ends up in the basement playing video games, that's not a very well done project. Let's put it that way. That's kind of how I look at it. And I don't recommend a total ban on this stuff, but it's got to be limited. 10 hours a day on a video game is not acceptable. 1 or 2 hours a day, yes, it's okay.
So, and you mentioned substituting that video game time with something that's more hands-on, like
Well, and the
Car mechanic-
engines, you see, that's the thing. And I asked them, you gave up video games. And the thing that they've told me, motors are more interesting than video games. You have to substitute with something that's really interesting.
As we think about visual thinking, and all kinds of thinkers. So, you mentioned when you were just talking now in your remarks about the math and science mind, the word mind.
Well, the other thing they're doing, you're making a veterinary tech take algebra. You got to screen out your best vet techs, your best animal people. Okay, there's a 2-year factory maintenance program, tech college up in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. I was just there. You're requiring algebra. You're screening out your best factory technician. Don't require algebra. You want to require arithmetic, the old-fashioned stuff, measuring,
Yeah.
things like that.
And Gina, are you seeing similar things in the kids and families that you see? What kinds of questions are they coming to you with?
Well, I mean, they want to know very early on, where their child's going to be. And nobody's got a crystal
When you
ball.
say early on, what age?
Well, ESPA, the Early Support Program, says early, but we have no limitations of age. We actually work with adults as well. We support adults with resources. And so, but mostly, on average, I would say around 4.
Yeah, and it's difficult to tell that age. I'm a big believer in it. I was exposed to musical instruments. I was horrible at them. Another kid is going to be exposed to that. Take off with it. I'm a big believer exposing to lots of different things and seeing what they gravitate towards.
Yep, absolutely.
So
Said
Gina,
it best.
yeah. So Gina, as you think about young kids and Temple's comment about our youth not being ready for the workforce and her comment about starting young, do you have any thoughts about that? Like starting young in
Mhm.
addition to what?
Yeah,
Temple Grandin.
boundaries around the screen time in general. Screen time doesn't, it teaches technical stuff, but it doesn't teach to engage with others and to learn from your environment. And so you want them outside, you want them exposed, you want to give them every sort of opportunity to learn, whether it's visual, paired with words, and the follow through, the experience of it. So that's the practice. If you ask something out of a child, you want to hold them to that expectation to follow through, whether you help them follow through or you do it or they do it themselves, does not matter.
Well, I want
You
to
want the
start.
practice.
Okay, the kids in the pipeline now at age 11, paper route substitutes. And the two that I can do in the lowest income areas, walking the neighbor's dog, you got to be over 7 o'clock every morning, walk that dog for 20 minutes, or a church volunteer job. These are things, the lowest income folks, they don't cost anything to implement. We start that at 11, instant illegal. I want to get into real jobs. I want them to learn how to work before they graduate from high school, ideally. But I want to emphasize, you got a video game addict in the basement. You know, the mechanical, most of those are going to be visual thinkers. And gradually get them, if someone's in the backyard working on cars, I can probably start exposing them sooner. In California, we got a lot of rules here. But you got an adult that's over 18, they can work in the shop.
So as we think about youth going into the workforce and their careers and becoming adults or older adults, we know that collaboration is key in our world, right? And so how do you see different types of thinkers working together?
You have to realize they exist and they have complementary skills. I went out on a construction job, guy that can't do algebra.
Yeah.
Tiny shop, got a corporate jet now. They get on the jet, they go out to the job. There was a bright blue piece of equipment on a wooden pallet. I asked what it was. It was for the refrigeration things. That's the stuff we don't mess with. You see, that's where the visual thinkers do mechanical, the more degreed engineers, the refrigeration, a lot more math. We don't touch that. That's why I didn't know what the equipment was. You see, this is collaboration. You have to have both.
Yeah. And how, what would you say to parents sitting in the audience this morning about, what's the best way?
Well, first of all, can your kid go and, you got a 16-year-old, he better be able to go in a store and shop by himself. Fully verbal 16-year-old. I'm running into too many of them.
Yeah.
They don't have a bank account. They're not learning any basic life skills. And I'm seeing too many parents, they get too stuck on the label. And I talked to one parent and I said, next time you go to a gas station, hand your kid a $5 bill and send him in the shop to buy something while you're filling the car up. You know what one mom said? I don't know if I have the guts to do that. You're talking about a 16-year-old doing well in school, and you don't have the guts to have them buy something. You know, pick out a nice gas station, not a dicey one, and do something that basic.
Yeah.
I'm running into that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Driving. It's going to take. Driver's ed shoves them into it way too quickly. I was lucky that on my aunt's ranch, mailbox was 3 miles away on a dirt road. That gave me 36 miles of driving practice a week. It might be a big parking lot. You may need to be a month, 20 minutes a day on a big parking lot. A totally safe place. Work into it much more slowly because you've got to get the steering and brakes and the gas pedal onto motor memory before you touch traffic.
Yeah. Gina, do you have any thoughts about that? Like collaboration and how different minds can work together?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, as Dr. Grandin said earlier, the schools have a long way to go to include this collaboration piece and the different thinking pieces. And you can start that very early on with, when you talk about project-based stuff, that you've got that it's strength-based, right? And so we keep, a lot of schools are now talking strength-based. Well, we have to see it in action a little bit more. But, I have visited preschools where they will do the hands-on stuff, and they divide kids up in what part they're going to kind of manage, even at the very young age. Outdoor preschools are really nice for a lot of the different thinking coming together and not to get sensory overwhelmed, right?
Well, let's talk about sensory stuff. Vacuum cleaner might be the most feared thing. You let the kid turn it on and off. It can become the favorite plaything where they make the noise with it.
Mhm.
If you wear a headset all the time, you're gonna make sound sensitivity worse. Have it with you while we're doing it. That's control. Try not to wear it.
Yeah, for all of that sensory stuff, it's about adapting. So exposure to the noise, having control over it, doing the on-off button, those are going to help a child because it doesn't just go away.
No,
The child will adapt.
but it's something where itchy clothes, like I buy these pants at Walmart, they gotta get washed 3 times before they're good enough for long playing nights. Okay, but that's something simple to do. Wash everything that goes against your skin. Let them go to the store and feel different pants and let the kid have some choice on it. Certain price range and stuff. They can have some choice. And then I would wash anything against the skin you wash before you even think about it. But that's a simple thing that you can do. And I talked to a girl almost lost a vet tech job over a scratchy scrub suit. Well, you didn't even wash it first. There's a zillion different kinds of scrub suits. Just find one you like. You lost a job over a stupid scrub suit where that could have been easily fixed.
I wonder too. So recently I was talking with a colleague of mine at Stanford and Stanford Accelerator for Learning, and she was talking about this idea of rightful presence. In other words, that we tend to do this kind of sorting thing in education, especially where we identify kids as certain types of ways, and then we kind of group them. And instead of doing this sorting thing, having this idea of rightful presence.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Rightful presence meaning that everybody belongs. There is no othering. Does that make sense?
Well, I leave all the abstract stuff out.
Yeah.
I said, you need my kind of mind. Is your fancy hotel and your fancy office. If the water goes in that basement, it'll be uninhabitable. You better care about that stuff.
Yeah.
You see, it has to be non-abstract to me. I have to see something. I see the hotel. I see looking out the window and I'm looking, oh, there's the harbor right there. That comes up 2 feet, flooded basement.
Yeah.
See, I see that. See, nothing's abstract.
Yeah. So as we think about kids with autism, people with autism, and they have these amazing strengths as you do, as others with autism do, and you talked about some of them, math and science, the word mind, the visual thinking.
Yeah.
How are there ways, like, should parents be also thinking about how to develop other areas?
Well, yeah, there's certain things. You can't be a rude, filthy, dirty slob. Then we get into the whole issue of masking. And my definition of masking is much more narrow than saying hi to somebody in the corridor. That's business social. You just learn how to do that. Masking would be, I have problems with noisy environments and hearing and having to be somewhere where I had to work in a really noisy environment and do a fast conversation. That would be very fatiguing. That would be masking, where it really is straining my slow processing speed. But it's two people are getting too much into the label. For me, career comes first. I am a university professor. Yeah, that comes first.
So you identify then first as a university professor,
Career.
not a person with autism.
No, I identified first as a university professor. The people I work with identified with I'm a Corvette enthusiast, and I really like to do custom vets. That was an actual person I worked with. That was his agenda. The meat packing plant stuff paid the bills. The vets were the fun.
Well, my dad had a Corvette growing up.
Okay.
So I'm a big fan. Gina, what do you think about that? Like how, when things don't come, the things that don't come naturally for these.
Yeah, you can absolutely learn. And that's what I'm saying. We don't lower the expectations. We start where a child is. What is their current skill in any given area? And then you work and you teach. And so it may not be natural. However, you can pull it out of your back pocket and use it when you need it. And that's about skill building. That's about problem solving. And so again, early on, exposure, practice, not overwhelming the sensory system.
You don't chuck them into that. But you see, my generation, social skills were taught much more structured. Like if I've got to say, please, mother would cue me. You forgot to say, cue. She'd cue me.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
again, whether they do it themselves or you help them with a prompt, oh, they just said hi. What are you going to say back? Hi. You know, and you're reinforcing that skill and you're practicing that skill. Again, it may not always be natural, but if you've got it in your repertoire of skills, you'll pull it out in an appropriate time.
Well, I tell parents that teaching an autistic person social is like teaching someone in a foreign country. Like, for example, in the Middle East, if I was to show the bottom of my foot right now, that's super rude. I'm not going to demonstrate it because it is super rude in the Middle East. But I have no way of knowing it unless somebody told me that that's considered very, very rude in the Middle East.
So, Temple, you talked in your previous remarks, you just said, you know, you and Bill Gates are similar, and you both.
And we were brought up in a similar way. And Mrs. Gates put him in Cub Scouts. And she had him serve coffee at her parties.
Yeah.
I had to serve snacks at parties. All the kids in my neighborhood had to do this to teach social skills.
And are there, in addition to engaging like that, are there other ways, other opportunities that parents can give their kids to build some of those social skills that might be
selling
harder?
candy at charity is another one. And these are things that our lowest income families can do. They cost nothing to implement. A church volunteer jobs. It's something on a schedule where somebody else is the boss. That's the real important thing. And so
not
I'm
the
going to
parent.
use the examples that our lowest income people can do because they cost nothing to implement.
And when we think about those kinds of situations and putting youth in those kinds of situations where they need to engage and they have somebody else, as you noted, like a boss that's not their mom and dad.
Very important. They start to learn how to work. See, when the paper routes, the kid had to go out and sell to customers, has to deliver the papers, collect the money.
Yeah.
You see that also teaches that entrepreneur. See, like someone like Thomas Edison was probably autistic. He sold newspapers. A guy that was a silver miner out west, he sold papers on the train. You see, that taught that talking to people an entrepreneur.
And I think that so when you were going back to when you were a kid and serving at those snacks at the parties, did somebody help you figure out what to say? Did you just
I was
figure out-
told what to say. We had to
Okay.
greet them at the door,
Okay.
and we were not allowed to use their first names. It's good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Wood. We shake hands and take their coat. Take the coats. Oh, drilled on exactly what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
My brother had to do the same thing. My brother's not autistic. He despised the part. But you know what he said? It helped him become a senior bank vice president because he could talk to older men. He's serious, he said.
Yeah.
And he became a senior bank vice president.
Yeah. Wow. Gina, I wonder, like, as you think about your work with parents and kids, like what kinds of social opportunities to build social skills can parents give their kids?
Yeah, I mean, it's just on a younger level, right? So I recommend parents go to playgrounds but before maybe role play, practice, let them know what the expectations are. And it's about clear expectations. None of us, right, can step up to expectations if they're not clear. And so what does it look like for this child? What does it sound like? And so say we're going to go to the playground and we're going to say hi to our friend, right? You can wave, say hi, it's up to you. So again, choices, control over.
Learn to take turns. I had a lot of emphasis on that. Teaching little kids to take turns. That was done at age 3, turn taking at board games. All right, let's say we're going on the slide or something. We've got to take turns doing it.
Right. And how to wait, right?
That's
So
what
we're going to wait and watch our friend. And then, you can even give them something to do. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3 people in front of you.
Yeah.
Oh, that one went down. Now there's 2. Oh, it's almost your turn.
Yeah.
Right. Then that anticipation, which is social anticipation. And there's, there can be a lot of underlying anxiety for this stuff. because of not knowing what to expect, not knowing really, or having that natural maybe skill to do this. But you don't, by avoiding these moments of anxiety, you're just digging a bigger hole to climb out of. So you have to help your child through these moments of anxiety. Going through anxiety is how we build that skill.
Yeah. Temple, did you, what Gina was saying about anxiety and your growing up, did you experience some anxiety? What was your,
As a young kid, I had no problems with it.
Yeah.
When puberty hit, that's when the panic attack started. And it went with a menstrual cycle. When estrogen was highest, most anxious, these panic attacks got worse and worse and worse. They went through my 20s. They were tearing my health apart. Colitis that just absolutely wouldn't stop. And I've been on antidepressants since my early 30s. And if you want to read about that, in my old book, Thinking in Pictures, I have a chapter called A Believer in Biochemistry. Now, I kind of resisted the idea of taking medication. And I read an article in Psychology Today called The Promise of Biological Psychiatry. And I tracked down in the library, that is back when you had the old big thick Index Medicus books, the actual journal article of endogenous anxiety from within. I had like 8 out of the 10 symptoms. And they had 2 drugs. They used Nardil, that's got too many dietary restrictions. And the other was tofranil, imipramine. And I later decided, I didn't like the idea of taking medication. Then I had a very stressful surgery week. And I was freaking out even more and more. And I pulled out those papers. I got the local GP to give me a 50 milligram prescription of imipramine. Within just a few days, the anxiety dropped. And the mistake that's made with antidepressants, drugs like Prozac, too high a dose. For anxiety, it's starter dose or less. Starter dose, I don't care which drug it is. Starter dose or less. But it was like adjusting the idle screw on an old-fashioned carburetor. And the engine was not racing. My fear circuits were on overdrive. I don't think I'd be here today if I hadn't gone on the medication, because my health was just falling apart completely. I think I would have had all my innards taken out. That's how bad the colitis got. It was horrible. And what it did is, it's sort of like my nervous system was 200 miles an hour to 100 miles an hour cycling up here. Like the medication is now cycling between 55, this was back when we had the double nickel, the oil embargo. When I started this, it's now 55 to 100 miles an hour. Still cycling, but instead of cycling up here, it's cycling down here. And there's way too many drugs given out to kids. I think it's horrible when I find a little kid who's on 5 different drugs. I talked to the parents, absolutely no thought went into those prescriptions. They were just writing prescriptions, making a zombie out of them. But I know other people that have been, especially the visual thinkers, that have gone on a low dose of antidepressants. It's really worked. I've also seen them go off the drugs with some very, very bad.
yeah, well, medication is a whole different topic, but,
Well, the younger they are, the more conservative I want to be about drugs,
Yeah.
period.
I wonder, Temple, as you think about your life and where you are today, what could you point to, like 1 or 2 things that were really critical for you to get you to where you are today?
Well, there were a number of steps. First of all, getting into a super good early intervention program that 2 teachers taught out of the basement of their house. A super good, small, little local private school where mother and the teachers worked together. That was critical. Then I got kicked out of 9th grade for throwing a book at a girl who bullied me, and went to special school, and they put me to work running a horse barn. And my mother was kind of concerned about the lack of academics. And Mr. Patey said, she'll make it up. And I never have been able to do algebra. Thank God, back in the 60s when I went to college, it was more probability and statistics. That was the fad at the time. With tutoring, I could do that. But if it had been pure algebra, I don't know if I would have got, I would have been just out of it. I majored in psychology to dodge the math classes. I had to drop physics. But my science teacher gave me a lot of projects because I was just goofing off in school.
All the way through?
No, of high school.
Okay.
Totally goofed off in high school. Now they made me attend classes, no recluse in a room. attend the meal. No recluses in the room, but overnight I turned my motivation around. Still couldn't do algebra, but history and all those kind of classes, I was just goofing off. And then when I went into Franklin Pierce College, small little college, thank goodness the introductory math class was not algebra. And when I failed my first quiz, I went to the math teacher and he tutored me in his office. You see, I asked for help. Thank you, Mr. Dion, for doing that. That was really important. I had to drop a biomedical engineering course. Couldn't do the math, but you need my kind of mind. Because biomedical engineering, they did the disastrous metal on metal hip joint that had gunk that went into people's bodies. I wouldn't have made that mistake. I would have seen that gunk and going, ooh, this is going to be trouble. You see, you still need the total non-mathematical
Yeah.
thinker too.
Yeah.
The mathematical thinker designs the joints that won't break. I'm going to say, we're going to have to go back to plastic on that.
Yeah.
This is not going to work.
Well,
And that was a major mistake,
Yeah.
major mistake in artificial joints.
as a person who also never really was great at algebra, I definitely, you end up choosing a path that you think you'll be successful at. So I definitely avoided algebra. But I'm wondering too, I heard you talk about like a teacher that helped you.
I had a lot of good teachers.
I wonder who your ally, like, are there?
Well, it was
women-
a series of steps along the way. Then I went and majored, was going to get a master's in psychology. And then I started visiting the feed yards, got interested in animal science. And there was a professor named Philip Stiles, very good teacher, poor researcher. Published his PhD papers, that was it. And dedicated his life to teaching. Thank you, Philip Stiles. And that was another person that helped me get my master's. It's all more like a series of steps. I also was pretty good at seeing doors to opportunity. And that's why that scene where I get
Wow.
the editor's card is so important.
Yeah. It sounds like you were able to see some opportunities for
Other
yourself.
thing I did is I asked for help. Kids today don't ask for help. And they're flunking out of school. I failed my first math quiz. I asked for help. Then in my master's, there was no way the professor was going to tutor me. I hired a graduate student to tutor me, and her mother owned a disgusting old wino bar down in downtown Phoenix. My job was to fix the rotten floor behind the bar. When the bar was open, the winos were there at the counter, and I take a skill saw, cut out this rotten floor where the beer cooler drained under the floor. There was a swamp of beer this deep under the floor. I'm not kidding. Cut that out there, put a piece of plywood in there, put linoleum over it, still drained underneath the floor. That paid for stats tutoring.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and I'm serious, that I did something when when I failed the first quiz. Now, you see, and I think, why did I ask for help and the kids today don't? It goes back to selling candy for charity and serving snacks at the parties. That taught super important skill.
So I want to allow enough time for people to come up and talk to you afterwards and maybe sign some books. There's some posters over there that she has signed. You can feel free to take.
But there's no single super turning point. It's sort of more like a series of steps. But I asked for help.
Yeah.
Now I had 3 students last semester flunk out of my cattle handling class because they didn't turn the assignments in.
Yeah.
Scale drawing was one of them, and another assignment had to do with looking things up on different scientific databases in animal behavior. They didn't do the assignments. And well, all the stupid HIPAA regulations, they don't give me the phone numbers. They wouldn't answer the emails. If I had their phone numbers, I'd be calling them, but I don't have them. Because they have all these stupid regulations. I would have gone after those students. I have 3 Fs in my class out of 80 students. These kids never came forward and asked for help.
Yeah.
Never. That's last semester.
So
I asked for help
yeah,
immediately. That's the difference.
Temple and Gina, as we wrap up our conversation, I'm wondering what it is that you would want to make sure that the folks listening to you today
I want their kid to
hearing.
get out and get into a career that's good. Get into a job that's better than running the dollar store. That's a good training job for a lot of them. But get out and, learn to live independently. The other problem is autism goes from Einstein, who definitely be labeled autistic today, to somebody that has very severe challenges, needs 24/7 care. It's all called the same name.
Yeah.
And I think people are getting too locked into the label. I see the person. I'm seeing people I worked with that had little shops in a plant. There was an electrical genius. Oh, fix anything electrical. Oh, this is bad. Changing bosses. Dangerous time. Plant got sold. They reassigned them to another factory. That was a disaster. Yeah. Changing boss.
So, and Gina, do you have any thoughts you want to?
I
Or-
mean, read Dr. Grandin's book and call ESPA, right? But seriously, do call ESPA. We work with all ages. We're supportive. We will give you directions of resources, and it's all free. And as Dr. Grandin mentioned earlier, there's wait lists. That's why we started ESPA 12, 13 years ago, because parents are on wait lists to get services for their child, and we're waiting. We're doing nothing. Well, not saying nothing, but if we could put the skills in the parents' hands to support their child from very early on, and with the exposure, with the support to try things, to, bring up the trash of neighbor.
Neighborhood where, okay, you take some communities, there's little tiny bitty car shops.
Mhm.
I don't care if it's against the law. We're going to very carefully put the 12-year-old in that.
I'm
I'm-
following you.
can't
Go
do
on,
that
let's
here.
do it.
They've got to learn how to work. And I worked with people in construction. They were bad boys. They would have ended up in jail if it hadn't been for shop teacher turning them around when they were teenagers. I worked with those people. We did concrete construction together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the stuff you're doing as an adult with your young child watching, you narrate and you let them try it. It's okay to have a screwdriver in your hand and learn to turn. Right. So, yeah.
Well, thank you both for your insights and sharing your insights and experiences with us today. And to our audience, thank you for joining us this morning. And Temple is amenable to hanging around and talking with folks and taking photos or signing things. So feel free to hang out for a minute or two. And Temple and Gina, thank
But
you.
on the other hand, we
Thank
don't,
you.
we got to push these kids, but we don't chuck them in the deep end of the pool. Like a sensory overload, crazy,
Yeah.
super busy takeout. That we don't show them.
Yeah. Well, thank you.